Fabulous. So good morning. I'm Tasha Saker, Assistant Director of the Appleton Public Library and current Chair of the WiLS Board of Directors. On behalf of the entire WiLS Board and staff, it's my pleasure today to welcome you to our annual member meeting. As has been the tradition, the annual meeting is a time for us to connect with our membership, to update all of you on what WiLS is doing behind the scenes, and to share a snapshot of the innovative work being done across our member community. Because WiLS staff is always looking to improve, this year's member meeting is going to be a little different than in years past. Most notably, it will be shorter, or we will try to make it shorter. We have tightened up the WiLS updates, and we invite you to read all about the 2023 activities in our recently published annual report. This will free up time for us to focus more on the cool work our members are doing, as well as a preview of what lies ahead in 2024. This is not to say that we aren't incredibly proud of what WiLS itself was able to do in partnership with our members in 2023. For all the details on that work, please make sure you check out the year in review linked in the meeting chat. I'd also like to take a moment to thank my WiLS board colleagues. I'm so honored to work with all of them. These 13 individuals represent the reaches of our membership, both geographically and organizationally. We are the folks who represent your interests to WiLS. We advise on policies or new service and development, keep an eye on the financial health and sustainability of the organization, and help WiLS staff think strategically about growth and innovation. Most importantly, we donate our time and expertise to help WiLS be the best it can be. We encourage you to know who your board representatives are and to feel welcome in reaching out to all of us. And if serving on this board is an opportunity you're interested in, watch for the call for nominations coming soon for our upcoming spring election. And personally, I must say that this is an amazing board to serve on and a great organization to be able to work with and on behalf of. So I encourage you to join in and join the board if you are so interested. So with that, let's get started. I'll turn things over to our Executive Director, Jennifer Chamberlain, for another update and a quick staff intro.
Great. Thank you so much, Tasha. And thank you to all of you for attending today. And for those of you listening to the recording later on, we are delighted to have this time with you. It's my honor to introduce you to the minds behind the magic here at WiLS. You may not know every face on the screen, but rest assured that no matter how you work with WiLS, these are the folks that are in your corner. When I talk today about what WiLS is doing for our membership, I encourage you to think back to this slide. Because along with the 600 plus organizations we work with, this is WiLS. Our work is guided in large part by the values that we share as an organization, and I want to touch briefly on some recent revisions that we made to our organizational values. Our staff revisits these value statements regularly, pretty much every year, to ensure that they still land with us and are truly representative of the why behind what we do. This year, the staff selected two of our values in need of a little fine-tuning. In the case of the first statement that you see on your screen, we wanted to include more actionable language that describes our own individual responsibility in upholding this value. And you're going to see that represented in bold text on the next slide. We recognize that to be an equitable, diverse, and inclusive organization, we need to continually reflect upon and actively work to eliminate what gets in our way of upholding this value. Likewise, our staff spent a lot of time this year thinking about how we can best amplify the essential role our members play in advancing the profession and upholding core democratic principles. We worried that the value as written was too vague and undefined. And so instead, by referring to specific documents that outline key professional ethics, we leave little room for misunderstanding. So in both cases, we know that words really matter, and we wanted to strike the right chord when describing the important underpinnings of our work and what we do. So you know, as you registered, that we wanted to infuse a little fun and get to know each other better. Even though we're in a webinar and you can't all see each other, you want to know who you're sharing this time with. So we've peppered in some fun facts throughout the meeting. So here's our first one. The question is, this person works at a library for a school that Harrison Ford almost graduated from. And the answer is Andrew Prowitz. Yay, Andrew from Ripon College. We're hoping that you can pull some strings and maybe get Indy an honorary degree if he doesn't have one already. So thanks, Andrew. And just a few quick housekeeping items before we turn things over to the member presentations. This meeting is being recorded. We will be sharing the recording out later with everyone who registered, as well as on our YouTube channel. In the interest of making sure all of our presenters have ample time, we're asking you to just hold onto your questions or comments, jot them down. And then after the third and final speaker, we're going to open up the chat to hear from you. So you'll have an opportunity to ask those questions. So one more trivia question before we get started. Fun facts about who's with us. This person won a Hugo Award for their magazine Electric Velocipede. And the answer is John Klima from Waukesha Public. He's not only an award winner, but he has a fairly robust Wikipedia page, quite impressive. So you might want to check that out and learn more about John and what he does when he's not at the library. So with that, let's get started. And I'm just taking a quick look here. I think I'm going to turn things over to Laura, who will be, Laura Damon Moore from our consulting team will be introducing our first speaker this morning. Take it away, Laura.
Thank you so much, Jen, and good morning, everyone. So as some of you may be aware, WiLS has coordinated a small library strategic planning cohort for several years now. We're currently partway through our 5th round, with 22 libraries having participated previously. The cohort supports libraries who serve a municipal population of about 5,000 or less, who want to work on a strategic plan in a supportive group learning environment with a shared curriculum and a toolkit of resources. So today I am so pleased to introduce David Gibbs, director at Gaze Mills Public Library. David holds a bachelor's degree in music from UW-Madison and has worked in libraries since 2018 when he became the director of the public library in Gaze Mills, Wisconsin, his hometown. David spent 21 years working as a teacher and musician in San Francisco before returning to Gaze Mills in 2016. He is an avid practitioner of Tai Chi Chuan. Gaze Mills participated in the cohort in 2022 through 2023, so the immediately previous round to this one. And now David will share a little bit about the fantastic work he and his planning team and their whole community did to craft their library strategic plan during the cohort. David, I'll turn it over to you.
All right. Well, thank you, Laura. Thanks for that introduction, and thank you for thanks to WiLS for the opportunity to participate in the cohort and also to share our experiences here at the member meeting. And yes, so we were involved in the 22 to 23 cohort with libraries from in Mineral Point, which is in our library system, the Southwest Library System. Also Manoa, Scandinavia, Wisconsin, Eagle River, and then Westby joined a little bit later. And yes, we owe a lot to Laura for running the show and keeping everything really upbeat and fun. But we also worked with Kim Kieswetter and Melissa McClymans, and probably a lot of people, the people behind the scenes who were doing things that we didn't get to meet. But so yeah, it was a fabulous experience. And it was, and it cost us $1,995 for the consulting work, and then an extra $945 for the WiLS administered survey, which was well worth it. I'd just like to introduce Gaze Mills a little bit. It's a population of 523. We're in the driftless region of Southwest Wisconsin. And we're known for our apple growing. We're the self-proclaimed apple capital of Wisconsin. And you can see here, this is a photo from the ridge overlooking Gaze Mills. And looking down Main Street there, where it angles off to the left, that's the bridge over the Kickapoo River, so we're also known for flooding. And we had our last big flood was in 2018. So that whole Main Street area gets flooded there. And so, my family, my parents and my sister and I, we moved to Gays Mills in 1977. And along Main Street there, the library had been in 4 different places before it moved to the current location, which is out in the community building. So perhaps we could move to the next slide and just see the new building. So that's our library there on the right, and in the Gays Mills Community Commerce Center. That's an old photo. There's a lot more vegetation around it right now. Here, I need to stand up and wave my arms so the lights come back on. Or not. So how about we can look at the interior of the library on the next slide. And we're very proud of our library. We get people from big cities like Madison and Chicago who come and are amazed at how a small village like ours can have a nice library like we do. Those airplanes were donated by a local teacher who builds them as a hobby. And then on the next slide, there's an author talk in progress there. That's Paul Cienfuegos there in the center. That program happened about a year ago. And then on the next slide, you can see a view from behind the library and behind the community building. So we've got a lovely green space to take advantage of. And the body of water that you see there is not a lake, but it's a slough. And it connects to the Kickapoo River by a little channel. And that slough is at its deepest, it's probably 2 feet. But you can canoe in it, but sometimes you get stuck on the bottom because it's only like about a foot or less in some places. Let's see. Then on the next slide, there's a picture of me operating the human hamster wheel in our Apple Festival parade that happens at the end of September. And actually, my dad designed that wheel and put all the signs on it. And that center wheel is weighted. It's a bicycle tire that always stays at the same. It doesn't spin while the wheel spins, so you can always read that. Gays Mills Library, read books, learn stuff. So maybe we can stay on that slide for a little bit. So strategic planning here at the library was something that was done informally, like I said, because of all the moves that the library had to make throughout the years. But it was the UW iSchool courses that really nudged me towards wanting to produce a strategic plan. And so the library board and I had been circling around strategic planning for about 2 years before we joined the cohort. And we had been studying other libraries' plans and had a basic idea of what we wanted our plan to look like. But we were missing the community input part of it in the form of a survey or community conversation. Then I took part in the WLA mentorship program, and my mentor was Walter Burkhalter, and we talked about strategic planning, and he kind of frankly told me that not every small library necessarily needs a strategic plan, as long as you're keeping your community in mind trying to do things that feel right for your community. You maybe don't need a codified plan. But we kept talking about it, and he recommended the WiLS cohort, and we just contacted WiLS, and they basically just held a spot for us. There wasn't an arduous application process, and then we were confirmed in about September, I think, so then it starts officially in November with the first cohort meeting, so there was quite a bit of education it was presented like a course, really, and so there was a lot of education in what a strategic plan actually is, how it's structured, the steps required to complete a plan. And so then along the way at the meetings, it was a lot of fun getting to know the member libraries, the cohort libraries, on Zoom. We mainly talked on Zoom, and just learning things like, for example, how Mineral Point and Eagle River share a Cornish background. They're because they're both mining communities. And so immigrants from Cornwall settled there, and so both Mineral Point and Eagle River have Cornish pasties figure a lot into their local cuisine. It was good to learn that Scandinavia, Wisconsin, is even smaller than Gaze Mills by a couple hundred people. It was really great seeing one of the team members on a cohort, I forget where he was from, was the director of transportation at a public school, and how he was pretty much at every meeting, and he would have to leave early to start his bus route. So that was just kind of delightful to get to interact with people like that across the state, and to feel like we were all in this endeavor together. We used Basecamp, which was a tool that I was not familiar with, but it was an excellent organizational tool for our communications and collecting all the documents we needed to look at. And the one thing that I remember especially is seeing how each library seemed to have its own method of promulgating the survey. I just seemed like we all had different ways of getting it out there. And yes, once again, Laura Damon Moore was just incredibly supportive and upbeat and fun to work with, even as she was reminding us of fast approaching deadlines. So which was important. I think having the deadlines was key to making it all work. And I think if the next time we do a plan, if we can't be in the cohort again, we'll definitely set deadlines for the steps that we need to take. How about you can advance to the next slide there. This is just one of the many documents that was very helpful during the cohort. This was basically just an outline of the meetings and what was expected. We had assignments that were due at each meeting, and everything was laid out very clearly. The first big challenge was conducting the community survey, and because that was kind of where our stumbling block with planning that we had done before joining the cohort. So with WiLS administering the survey, it was all very easy to do, and we did get a good volume of responses, and we felt confident we were hearing from library users and non-users alike, and then also doing the planning landscape questionnaire. that we had a few select people complete. That was very helpful in just helping us focus our attention in certain areas. And as we were, during the cohort, one library had to drop out. Not sure why. But then Westby, the Westby Library, the Beckham Library, which is about 30 miles away from us, they joined because they had been in the cohort a previous year and also had to drop out. So seeing these libraries kind of drop out and join again helped me to realize that this can be challenging, and that if we can stick with it, we'll come up with a plan. So how about you can advance to the next slide there. Here's just another very good, very useful chart that outlines the strategic planning process. And I think this could be turned into a board book. So maybe we'll look into doing that for planning. But yeah, the team that I assembled here in Gaze Mills, we worked well together, I thought. And they each brought different perspectives and skill sets to the endeavor. And their attendance at the cohort to the meetings varied a bit. One team member really tried to attend all the meetings. One of our team members couldn't attend any due to work obligations. And our board president attended a couple of the meetings. And one of our team members had done strategic planning with a different organization before, not a library, but she was familiar with strategic planning. She was really good at teasing out themes from our data. And the bulk of the writing fell to me, but the team was really responsive when I showed them my drafts, and they offered their suggestions and feedback. And also our library board helped me in crafting some of the introduction, and suggested a couple of action items that we had been talking about before the cohort. And during the cohort meetings, we studied plans from other libraries. At one particular meeting, we looked at some plans, and there was one plan in particular from the Monticello Public Library that really jumped out at me, and I just felt like just a light bulb went on in my head, and I said, that's what I want our plan to look like. And so that really gave us something good to emulate, and so that gave us a framework to build on. And then now I'll just show you just the third page of our strategic plan here. And my first draft, I used the Comic Sans font just to be playful with it. And I liked it, so we stuck with that. And so yeah, so we just decided to not to do a glossy, fancy presentation for our plan, but just make it on a Word document. And we also decided to, rather than start the plan right when it was completed, let's say like in August, July or August, we decided to start it at the beginning of 2024 to make it coincide with the calendar years. So our plan runs from this year through 2028. And then, and yeah, you can obviously see our strategic goals there. Yes, on the next slide, this is another very, very useful document from that WiLS provided us. And this is just one of the many implementation worksheets. This is kind of the core document here so sending us out the door after our final meeting. Laura has offered to, stay in touch, and so we still have her support during the implementation process, and so this is what we're working with. Our library board ultimately is very happy with the plan that we have produced, and we have a new library assistant since creating the plan, and she's very excited to be on staff, and is very eager to help us actualize the goals and objectives of the plan. And she's even after reading the plan, she's picked a few areas that she feels she can help with. So that's a bit different than the library assistant that we had previous to her. So we're kind of building a good team here. And then maybe just our last slide is another shot of a different Applefest parade. And this is me and Cindy, previously our library board president, and currently she's the treasurer of the Friends group. And she also designed that gag stack of books there. There's a metal rod running up the center of it. And that's at the end of the parade. So yeah, our arms are about ready to fall off there. We were passing it back and forth. And there were other people in our parade entry. There were some kids carrying a banner for all the libraries in Crawford County, which include Prairie du Chien, Soldiers Grove, and Gays Mills. And so my work with the small library strategic planning cohort is helping inform my work on our county library plan, because we have a plan that's embarrassingly out of date, and we're working to update that, and hoping, of course, to increase our county reimbursement above 70%, because we've got a lot of rural, hilly towns here in Crawford County that don't have libraries. So we feel we should be reimbursed at a higher rate, and so we're hoping to make that happen. So also from working on the cohort, finally I was able to claim 20 credits toward certification, and I do feel like it has made me a better librarian, and positioned our library to better serve our community. So I'm very grateful to WiLS for the opportunity, and I'll turn it back to you. Thank you.
Thanks so much, David. That was really great information. We really appreciate you sharing your experience with everyone. So hold on to your questions for David. We'll come back at the end and make sure that we get those to him. So I just want to jump in really quickly to say, I need to introduce the person who's going to be introducing our next speaker, because if you don't know Andy Coffin, she is our communications specialist, and she embeds signature charm and delight in everything that she does, from graphic design to communication. So when you are smiling, either looking at this playful slideshow or reading a communication, it is an Andy original, most likely, that is bringing that joy to your day. So Andy, I'll turn things over to you.
Thank you. Very kind words, Jen. I'm excited today to introduce you all to Kirsten Moffler-Daykin from Western Technical College in La Crosse. Last year, Kirsten proposed an ambitious and a thoughtful proposal for our Ideas to Action Fund, and we awarded her $5,000 to help support her efforts. For those who aren't aware, the Ideas to Action Fund is a grant program in which each year WiLS and the WiLS board award up to $5,000 to member organizations to help kickstart or expand their project ideas. It's a short application. It's minimal reporting requirements, and we do that on purpose so it's lightweight, so you all can focus on doing the actual work. So far, we've funded 38 projects and invested over $150,000 in our members' ideas since the program launched in 2018. And you might want to start thinking about your project ideas now, because the application period opens up April 1st. and is open through June 3rd. So that's right around the corner. But today, I'm excited to introduce you to Kirsten, who is going to talk about her project, Blooming with Books. Kirsten Moffler-Daykin currently manages the Learning Commons at Western Technical College and honors trauma-informed, poverty-informed, and culturally responsive academic support and library service programs happening there. She works closely with the Office of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion by serving on the Diversity Action Team and as a strategy team lead for poverty-informed work at Western. Kirsten also serves on the Academic Policies team, is a certified instructional trainer in trauma-informed care, and is an equity, leadership, and anti-racism professional development workshop facilitator. For the first 20 years of her career, Kirsten taught English and speech in secondary, alternative education placement, post-secondary, and multilingual learner programs. She recently completed a doctorate from Northeastern University in curriculum teaching, learning, and leadership, with an emphasis in social justice. A transplant from the greater Boston area, Kirsten and her family have called Western Wisconsin home for 12 years. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Kirsten so she can tell you all about her project.
Hello, everybody. Thank you for having me, and thank you so much for the opportunity to pursue this project. And yes, I think that ambitious is a good word, a kind word, perhaps. But I would love to just share with you what we've been working on at Western. So we can maybe advance to the next slide. I took the description of our project from Andy. Andy has been just tremendously helpful for Ellen Range and I as we are looking at this project. And she called our project a creation project that is growing organically. And I really am so thankful for that description, so that it's less a description of maybe just being messy and all over the place. It is planned, it is thoughtful, but yes, there's a lot of things that are taking root organically in how we are reaching our target student populations. Okay, next slide. So the problem that we're trying to solve in part with this project is that our students at Western Technical College in La Crosse and in surrounding communities, our students are coming to us with a very diverse background in educational preparation and foundation skills. We are an open access college or an open enrollment college, which means that we accept every student, which is a wonderfully democratic way to handle higher education. And I am proud to be part of a school that does that. It does mean, though, that there are some challenges for our students and for those of us supporting our students. Low literacy skills and low exposure to reading materials and libraries really do contribute to some of the issues that we see, such as low course completion rates and lower graduation rates, retention rates at our school. Non-traditional students and those diverse experiences in academic settings really do require us to be creative in the way that we support them. English language learning requires more support than what we are currently giving. And so part of this project funded some experimental approaches to that, which I'm excited to share with you. Our students are routed to an academic support system or program that we've developed over the course of the last 5 years. And we've basically taken a K-12 or PK-12 model of intervention and applied that to a higher ed setting. Our only issue really with this is that our students don't necessarily participate at the rate that we would like to see them participate. And so we're needing to find a way to create some community around academic support. And truly, this grant from WiLS has allowed us to play around with that, to see what we can create for students, because isolation really does contribute further to people just leaving college, to people trying it for a few weeks, getting overwhelmed, and we never see them again. And certainly can contribute to feelings of imposter syndrome. So many of our students desperately want college to be right for them, even though perhaps they have been told their whole lives that it wasn't. Many of our students are not supported by the people in their lives and are sort of almost waiting to fail, even though I think so oftentimes are desperate for that not to happen. And so it's a lot of times imposter syndrome, as many of us know, can really creep in as we are becoming more isolated and worrying about our own performance. And so this grant has really allowed us to open up some opportunities for students to connect with each other and grow in literacy. Okay, next slide, please. Here are key student groups. So we have multilingual learners, parenting students, non-traditional students, neurospicy students, so students who present and identify with a pretty diverse approach to learning and interacting, health and public safety and human services students, which those areas of our college and the majors that fall under those tend to be the most complex majors for our students to pass. And with human services, our most diverse group of learners and higher need groups of learners tend to gravitate towards that area of study. Students with low foundational literacy, poverty impacted students, trauma impacted students, and also this other group where we would like to be more helpful with our community in really assisting with some language preservation in our area. So those are the targeted groups that we're looking at. And truly, in a lot of our reading groups and literature circles, the students really come from quite a few of those different groups. There's quite a cross section. Okay. So for us, this grant was meeting the need for opportunities to provide some high interest reading groups in our school, to focus on foundational skill building. And for those of us who are educators, we know that the best way to engage learners and to truly instruct is to make it as, least painful as possible, right? So bringing in the fun and bringing in the community, bringing in the food, all that kind of stuff is so important. So we are truly looking for materials to engage individuals, engage community, to reach a diverse group of learners. We are very interested in our culturally responsive approach that encourages students to bring all of those home wisdoms that they grew up learning in their houses or their homes or wherever it is that they were growing up, and in the language, their mother tongue that they were learning that. We want to honor that cultural wealth that students bring with them, to say, you know what, that preparation, you're talking a lot about low foundational skills, right? Low literacy skills. So many students, though, are coming in with high cultural skills, high cultural wealth. And those are just strengths beyond measure. And if we can really encourage that, so oftentimes students will be able to pull from those homegrown truths to really help learn in college, to connect college life with home life. That's so important for our students. Of course, you know what? People love gifts, they love perks. And so this grant has helped us attract students to participate with food and gifts and literacy kits and things like that. And then, of course, we really want to increase exposure to libraries and reading support and academic resources in the Learning Commons. We really want more students to feel like, yes, this is your place. You can come here. Because as warm as we try to be, our library is well, it's very stylish and a little bit cold and beige and not terribly warm from an appearance standpoint. And a lot of students have never felt very comfortable in an environment like this. And so we have quite a bit to do to make this comfortable for folks. Okay, next slide, please. Okay. So this was the targeted high interest reading circles. This was our, what we really hoped to accomplish. And we've got several groups that are currently running and a few that we hope to launch soon. I don't need to read all of these to you, but basically that list of student target groups that I had mentioned earlier, we have developed at least one, and in some cases multiple, reading groups and opportunities for each of those targeted groups. So that's something that we've really been working on. And so we've got a few of these that are currently ongoing. So we have summer story time, we have parent-child story hour, we have bilingual or multilingual story times with caregivers as well as children. We have reading circles that are really targeted towards specific classes and specific majors of students. And we have something that's coming up soon. I'm hoping we will start in the summer, but we are still in the talking phase of it. But the language preservation focus for reading circles. So I hope to talk to you a little bit about that in some future slides. Okay. This is the Human Services Reading Circle. This is just a handful of people who have joined this, but we've got about 19 students that participate in this. Basically, Human Services is a program that's very popular at Western. And unfortunately for so many students, reading is a very big challenge for this group. And so the reading materials are often written at a graduate school level, even though most of our students really are reading in this program, and a lot of them in about a 4th to 5th grade reading level, if that. Some are a little lower than that. And of course, some are exponentially higher than that. But we are finding ways to really meet students where they are, to process a lot of the materials that they are assigned and to really connect personally with this material. And we are just finding that meeting weekly with this group, the students are much better able to participate in their coursework, to participate in conversation, to keep showing up to class, which is key, and are passing their classes. And our instructors are reporting that they can tell who is regularly participating in this reading circle. And I have to say that one of the reasons that we were able to get such a great turnout is we bought pizza. And so that really has been important to bring that food element in, to really build community, to lure college students into doing something extra. Food always helps, but truly it's a small price to pay for the dividends that we're seeing in this group. Okay, and so some of these things on the slide here, these are the things that this group is working on, and Carrie Grakowski is one of our faculty who is leading this reading circle, and these are really the things that she is working on with this group of readers, this group of learners, and it's just been very beneficial. So we're so happy that it is taking off and continuing. Okay, next. We have learned some surprises in this one, some happy surprises. So on Wednesday and Thursday nights, I've been taking myself to Sparta, which is about 35 minutes from our La Crosse campus here. And we have been holding a multilingual, or in this case from Sparta, a bilingual story time with parents and their caregivers and their children. And we have been working on language building for both children and adults. And so what we're finding is a lot of the kids that come to our group are not speaking Spanish so well. They have definitely adopted English in school. And so this opportunity has created some really nice bonding time between families to grow Spanish and English skills. So English for the adults and Spanish for the children. Okay, next. this is the one that we are working on next, and it's very near and dear to my heart. Western has created a Western Tribal Collaboration Council, and we are in their very early stages, and we're really trying to create a community of partnerships here, particularly with the Ho-Chunk Nation, and trying to find ways that Western can actively engage with this community. Western does occupy the land of the Ho-Chunk people, and we're very eager to make some good connections there. And so one of the things that we're looking at is creating a bilingual story time too, with some Ho-Chunk English storybooks. And so that is in its very early stages, but very excited about that, but also engaging with some language acquisition and language preservation activities in our library. So we are getting ready for an interactive Ho-Chunk English language activity center in our library. So very much looking forward to that. Next, please. Okay. So these are the kinds of things we're buying with the money. A lot of this that work is people-based, but we do need things. And so these are the things that we're looking at. We're creating literacy kits and gifts for parents to take home to read with their kids. A lot of times our student parents do not feel comfortable at standard story time in libraries. Maybe they don't feel like they look like the other parents, or their kids don't behave like the other kids do. And so they avoid it. So these are some things that we're looking at, is creating a comfortable space for them here. And food is super important. I think I've said that a few times. I can't say it enough. Okay, next. Please. Okay, here are some things that we have been buying. And so conchas are very, very, very popular with our kids and our story time, and piñatas and all of this. Pizza, of course, always popular, and activities. That's a lily pad game right there that they love to play with. Flora's lava. That is the best invention I have ever seen in my life. I wish I had those when my kids were little. Okay, next. Mostly we're just interested in, no matter what literature circle we're talking about, keeping it fun, making this a creative time, a community time, social. If we can have balloons and pizza and all that good stuff, then we have it, candy, because so often what we need to do is make learning joyful again for people who maybe have not come with that experience to us. Okay, next. And this is essentially just what you see when you walk into our library now. And so we do have standard library and academic library appearance, but we also have spots in our library that are very obviously populated with kids and projects and things like that. Some people might say, hey, is this really a college library? And the answer is, you bet it is. Libraries look like what the community needs them to look like, right? And so we're really trying to make sure that we're meeting the needs and the expectations and the wishes of the students that we serve. And we're just so thankful to WiLS that we were able to work on this project, and that we continue to work on this project. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Kirsten. I'm like tearing up. I love that. Thank you so much for sharing this work. It's so important. I'm really grateful that you took the time to share it with us today. There will be time to ask your questions at the end, because we do have one more interesting speaker to hear from. So with that, I'm going to kick it over to Erin F. H. Hughes, who is WiLS's digital and community outreach archivist, to introduce our next speaker.
Thanks, Andy. We are so proud to introduce our colleague, Cassy Leeport. She is the Tribal Libraries, Archives, and Museums teacher, also known as TLAM, and the iSchool library manager at the UW-Madison, who will be sharing about a project WiLS has been glad to partner on for several years, the TLAM program and Wisconsin Native Nations. We'll tell you about her in a moment, but first, a bit of the background on our work together. The Mukurtu Midwest Hub began at WiLS in 2017. Mukurtu is a free open source digital platform that is built by and for Indigenous communities to share their own cultural heritage according to their community's protocols and traditions. This work has continued at WiLS with the current grant-funded program curating Indigenous digital collections and a brand new Culture Keepers Collective, which is a collective by and for tribal cultural workers. It is a privilege to be partnering with Cassy in service of our Wisconsin Native Nations. Her energy and passion for this program have already taken our partnerships to new heights. Cassy holds a BA in creative writing from UW-Madison, a master's in library and information science from UW-Madison, and a master's in curriculum and instruction from Minnesota State University Moorhead. Before returning to Wisconsin, Cassy served as the Director of Library Services and Tribal Archives for Red Lake Nation College, Circulation Manager for Bemidji State University's Library, and Library Services Program Specialist for Minnesota Department of Education. Cassy is also a proud direct descendant of the Grand Portage Band of Ojibwe in northern Minnesota, mother of two, and enthusiast for all things arts and crafts. Thanks, Cassy, for being here.
Thank you, Erin Miigwech, for that wonderful introduction. Buju, Cassy Leeport, Indigenous, Makwa, Indodem, Gichi Onigamig, and Donjiba. So as Erin said, hello, my name is Cassy Leeport. I'm a direct descendant of the Grand Portage Band of Ojibwe, which is like that tippity top of the North Shore of Minnesota. You know, you hit Grand Marais and just keep going. And I'm just so happy to be here today to talk about our partnership that TLAM and the iSchool has with WiLS. So you can go to the next slide. So Erin gave a little bit of an intro on TLAM. TLAM, I'll call it TLAM for the rest of the presentation because Tribal Libraries, Archives, and Museums is a mouthful and we're grateful for acronyms. But it was an effort started in 2008 at SLIS. So that's what the iSchool used to be called at UW-Madison. And it was an effort that was brought about through Red Cliff Nation in northern Wisconsin. And their library had been shut down, and there was a meeting held in Wausau, and Director Louise Robbins and Associate Director Michelle Besant were at this meeting, and nobody from Red Cliff was at the meeting. And Louise was like, well, why are we talking about Red Cliff's library? Red Cliff should be talking about their library. What does the community want? And that was the origin story of TLAM. Students got together, worked with Red Cliff community members, did community surveys and meetings, and of course there was food, because that's the sense of this theme of all of our things of bringing community together is food's really important. And the TLAM class was started that year because the students realized in 2008 that they also had a lack of knowledge about Wisconsin Native Nations, about tribal libraries, about tribal archives, about tribal museums. I myself was a TLAM student in like the 2012 to 2014 era before I began my career as a tribal librarian and archivist, and I returned this summer just beyond excited to come back to the TLAM program in this new era with some new momentum and really continuing our beautiful partnership that we have with our Native Nations and also with WiLS. Next slide. So there's three kind of main parts, but they're all sort of intertwined, so it's hard to break TLAM down about what it really is. So there is a course. Right now it's one course offered each spring, but we're looking to expand the curriculum. Right now I have almost 30 students in the class, which is the biggest class we've ever had for TLAM. We have over 11 projects that we're working on this semester. And it's a service learning emphasis in the course. So we spend every week, those 2.5 hours really digging into readings, unpacking and unlearning and relearning. And then we take that knowledge and we work on projects with Wisconsin tribal nations. There's a student group that keeps projects going throughout the year. And the student group also is working really hard to engage with our campus community and to have more of a presence with Indigenous students on campus. So we host a lot of our meetings at the Indigenous Student Center. We're working on building a library in the Indigenous Student Center. And we just try to collaborate a lot because I have a personal goal of just having more Indigenous students in the iSchool and part of TLAM and returning to their communities in their cultural institutions. But ultimately, our partnerships are the key to everything that we do in TLAM. Our partnerships with our Native nations are the most important thing. Our first partnership was with Red Cliff Nation. Since then, we have worked with almost every single tribal nation in Wisconsin. If anybody knows anyone doing awesome work at St. Croix or Mole Lake, put me in touch. Those are pretty much the two tribal nations we haven't worked with thus far, but they're always on our mind. And also our partnerships with other institutions and other organizations such as WiLS. You can go ahead to the next slide. I just wanted to showcase this TLAM reunion picture from October 2022, which to me, this reunion happened like 3 months ago, but it was a year and a half ago almost. And we did this to honor Louise Robbins, who's up front in the red sweater. She was the director that started it all, but also all of the students, all of the community partners that have kept TLAM going and have kept these partnerships alive. Because TLAM at the root is about sustainable and responsible partnerships, respectful learning, respectful engagement with Native nations. And the students, they come from all sorts of diverse backgrounds, and most students say that TLAM was an incredibly important part of their LIS education at UW-Madison. You can go ahead to the next slide. Some TLAM projects that we're working on this spring. So there's more than what's on the slide, but I just wanted to highlight a few. So we are working with Ho-Chunk Nation. We work with Ho-Chunk Nation's language division with Adrian Thunder, one of the board members of WiLS. We work with Ho-Chunk Nation Museum, and we actually have the picture on the slide is students taking pictures of some foam core of a previous veterans exhibit that they had, and unfortunately lost the files where all those were typed up. So one of the projects they'll be working on is retyping all the names of all the Ho-Chunk Nation veterans, because they only exist on the foam core right now. And Ho-Chunk Nation opened its tribal library this past Monday. And so we had TLAM students at the opening, just celebrating how beautiful it was that their tribal library had its soft opening, grand opening to be set for May 10th. And we'll be working on projects with them. We also are working with Red Cliff Nation. We've continued to work with them. Their emphasis now is, you know, I could talk about Red Cliff for a whole meeting in itself. But they have grown so much. They went from not having a library to getting moved around the reservation in different spaces, growing the collection, weeding the collection, and now they have like, I think it's 5 full-time staff in the library, and they're working with TLAM this semester in building capacity for staff, particularly with like questions regarding like resume making. So our TLAM students will be helping them create like resume toolkits for helping with patrons that come in. We're also working with Bad Rivers Library and Museum. We're working with Menominee Nation on a community archiving project. We're working with Oneida Nation. I was actually just there yesterday with 3 students. Got back at about 10 p.m. So if you see me drinking like my large soda during this meeting, it's because I'm pushing through with caffeine after a beautiful long day with Oneida Nation's library yesterday, where we did a tour of the library, of the community, of the museum, and began working on a project. It was supposed to be about programming history, but we actually switched gears and we're working on sort of a cabinet of unknown things in one of their storage areas, because there's been some community interest in it. So we switched gears and we stayed late because they had a creation story program. So we got to stay and listen to some storytelling about Oneida creation stories. And then we're also working with Stockbridge Muncie with Monique Tyndall, doing some cataloging cleanup. She's been moving things around in the museum and archives and needs to make sure that her catalog records reflect the location. So students will be doing some really cool things with that. And again, it's the students that are doing this work, but it's our community partners that make it possible. And we always say that, like, yeah, it's helpful that our students go and work on projects, but as those of you in this room know, like, it's a lot of work having volunteers. It's a lot of work training new folks and, you know, inviting them into your space. So our students get so much more out of this experience than I think our community partners do. And we keep that in mind. And we talk about reciprocity. We bring gifts. We share cultural knowledge. We share, our LIS experience. But they're getting so much as well. And it's just a really beautiful way for them to see a model for really responsible, respectful, and sustainable methods of partnerships between a university, between students, and our Wisconsin tribal nations. Next slide. So how do TLAM and WiLS support each other? In so many ways. I mean, so many of the values of TLAM and WiLS just line up with each other. WiLS also models sustainable and respectful partnerships. Community is at the heart of everything. We've heard our last two presenters spoke about these partnerships with WiLS and how the community puts it at the heart. Aaron gave an introduction about Mukatu, and Mukatu is something we talk about in class. We talk about CMS platforms and ways that they can and can't work for tribal nations, and why Mukatu is sort of like the answer, but also Mukatu is kind of scary and it's different. And so there's all this learning going in for our students to learn about different CMS platforms, but also for them to be able to work on that with our partners. And then finally, we have TLAM alumni at WiLS, Aaron, who introduced me, Kristen, and there's probably more of you in the audience right now because we've been around since 2008. Class has been held every single spring, and our alumni are out in the communities doing phenomenal things with their libraries, because even though it's not usually Indigenous students, the values that they learn in TLAM class means that they are going out into their communities, into their libraries, into their archives, into museums, and they're taking those values that they learned about sustainable and respectful partnerships, and they are bringing those to those institutions. They're asking the hard questions at those institutions. They're bringing, the knowledge that they learned in TLAM to these other places and spreading that beautiful love. Next slide. One of the most exciting things is that we're bringing Culture Keepers back. Culture Keepers, some of you might not be familiar with it. Most of you might not be. It began in 2012 because my predecessor running the TLAM program at UW-Madison, Omar Poehler, realized that the students were getting this really unique experience to go to all these different tribal libraries, tribal archives, and tribal museums. And they were able to kind of see the differences and begin to develop this network of relationships. But the folks working at the tribal libraries, tribal archives, and tribal museums in the state, they didn't get the same opportunities necessarily to meet each other and to see each other's institutions. And so he began writing IMLS grants for the Culture Keepers Institutes, Culture Keepers gatherings. And that was meant to be a professional development conference where the grants paid for, travel, lodging, all of those things, so that way that wouldn't be a barrier. A lot of our tribal libraries, archives, and museums are small institutions, small amounts of staff. And it's a big deal to send everybody to a professional development gathering, to close your spaces. And so Culture Keepers kept those things in mind, because ultimately being able to have this network and relationships with other people doing similar work was just so valuable. When I was a tribal librarian and archivist, it was me. I had a part-time library assistant, but I was in a rural part of Minnesota. I was not regularly talking to other librarians, other archivists. I didn't have that professional network geographically close to me, but I met people through Culture Keepers when I was a student, and I was able to build these relationships and take that with me so I could talk to folks. I knew I could visit people. I knew I had support. And that is what Culture Keepers is. And I'm so grateful that through the iSchool, through WiLS, and through the Nicolet Federated Library System, we're able to pool our resources and bring Culture Keepers back this year. It hasn't been held since 2018. And we've had a lot of turnover in our tribal cultural institutions, and people really miss that relationship. The pandemic changed a lot of things, but it didn't change the fact that like people crave that network and that connection. And we are just so excited for Ho Chunk Nation to be hosting it this year at their community center in Black River Falls, which is where their tribal library is. And we'll be bringing folks together this April 17th, 18th, and 19th. And Aaron and Kristen at WiLS are a huge part of this planning committee. Adrian Thunder, who's on the board, is on the planning committee. And it is a true collaboration of these organizations that care so much about partnering and relationships and the cultural work being done. Oh, and Hannah Zima's here from Nicolay Federated Library System. Perfect. Hannah, thank you so much for being part of it. Like our organizations coming together is what is making Culture Keepers possible. Next slide. So our goals for the future, you know, Culture Keepers and our partnership between TLAM and WiLS is addressing a need. There's so much capacity of like dreams and hopes and also just like urgent priorities involving language preservation and historic preservation, cultural revitalization that we're overcoming, you know, and finding time, space, and capacity for developing a network and developing those relationships is really important. We have similar projects and goals and systems of support. So rather than TLAM always talking about Mukurtu, and then they're also talking about Mukurtu with folks at WiLS, us having a network of support, knowing that we're not having our tribal nations, like sometimes they talk to TLAM and sometimes they talk to WiLS. They know that we all work together and we all share that information together to try to create, you know, more effective ways of us working on these projects. We hope to continue growing the community. We hope to see Culture Keepers, you know, come back every single year and that there's a renewed energy and additional support from more partners in the state. And we want to just continue to have shared spaces for learning, relationships, and knowledge sharing. I also just want to point out this picture on the slide here is when we were in Red Cliff again this November for just a feast, a wonderful book club, and just space for students to grow up. Because even though the class is held in spring, we try to make these trips year round to make sure that the relationships and partnerships are not tied to a semester, because it is a constant relationship that we have. So miigwech everybody for having me come and speak. I'm honored to be here. I'm so excited to share with you all these awesome things about TLAM. And thank you for having me.
Thank you so much, Cassie, for being here today. It's always such a pleasure to work with you, and we appreciate it. I'm going to hand it off to Jen.
Thanks, Erin. Thanks, everyone. We just heard really powerful examples of organizations valuing careful and intentional planning, investing in authentic relationships, and taking an expansive view of community. And I'm feeling inspired. I hope many of you are too. Thank you again to Cassie, David, and Kirsten for sharing your experiences with us today. Your projects really show that depth and diversity of the kinds of work our members are engaged in. And it's stories like this that really excite us here at WiLS. So we're really impressed by all of you. We know we've run a bit over the hour, so we tried. We're going to take a few more minutes because we want to have some time for questions. So we know if you need to leave, we understand, no problem there. Remember, this meeting is recorded, so the recording will continue and you can come back to it when you have time. So if you can stick around, that would be great. We're gonna open up chat for questions. And please, if it's not obvious in your chat, who the question is directed to, just make sure you point that out. So are there any questions or comments from folks? I know the chat had some real positive messages coming through while people were speaking. And thank you, Cassie, for sharing your email there. We will make sure that contact information is included in the follow-up materials as well, so you can get in touch with these speakers directly if you have questions. While we wait to see if some questions come in, I think I'm going to move ahead, if that's all right with you, Andy. But please jump back and interrupt me as questions may pop up in the chat. So we have another trivia question. Or a fun fact, this person has worked for their organization for 32 years. Let's see who that is. Jenny Baker at Wisconsin Lutheran. I don't know if you're still on, Jenny, but if you are, that's incredible. And your organization is lucky to have you and your institutional knowledge. So thank you for sharing that. I am going to touch on in about 60 seconds what WiLS is working on in 2024. So just like in our annual report, I'm going to share this through the lens of our strategic plan, our strategic goals. First and foremost, we're here to help build and strengthen the communities we work with. One of the ways we can do that, and you can help us be better at doing that, is by hearing from you. And so we did, 2 years ago, we did a member survey. We're going to be doing that again this spring. We ask that you please take a few moments and just share with us where you think we're hitting the mark and where you want to see more from us. So watch for that survey and please respond as you're able. Another prime example of how we're strengthening community partnerships and collective projects, as Cassy just touched on. We're super, super excited about this new Culture Keepers, or the rejuvenation of Culture Keepers Collective. We're so honored to be a part of this vital work with our friends at across the Wisconsin Native Nations. Our second goal area is on fueling innovation, kickstarting projects, getting things done. We know that your needs are evolving and our services are trying to adapt right in tandem. An area of growth that we're really experiencing is the continued expansion of our data and research services, as well as the variety of consulting work we're getting involved in. On the cooperative purchasing side of the house, we have plans to create additional toolkits, to find new ways to partner with our direct order vendors, and continuing to make improvements to the WiLS subscription portal so we make that experience easier and more efficient for you. And lastly, we place a high priority on our health and your organizational health because we know strong places make for strong work. 2 ways we're putting this into practice is by paying particular attention to the consortia we work with, and helping them build their own capacity. So these are large-scale collaborations that really are a key piece of the puzzle of that constant doing, that tension of doing more with less. Doing things together we see as really the antidote to that. And then I want to shine a spotlight on the work of our admin team here at WiLS. They are working always behind the scenes on being leaders in how we utilize tools, how we design our workflows and document processes. This year, admin has declared 2024 the year of the checklist. And so they're going to be building a robust set of checklists that are going to help when we're spinning up new projects, fine-tuning services, and just other general support needs to make things more efficient. And we're just so fortunate and lucky to have them on our team. So I'm going to look quick here at the chat to see if any questions came through. I just see a lot of thank yous and congratulations. Here's how you can connect with us. We are just a message, a call, a click away. So get in touch with us. We'd love to hear from you. I think we might have some more trivia. We have one more, and you're gonna want to stick around for this one because this is someone in our meeting wanted, before entering the library field, aspired to be a witch. Any guesses? It's Gina Ray. We know you would be a good witch for sure. So we know you'd use your powers for good. Anyway, thank you so much on behalf of everyone here at WiLS. Thank you for spending time with us. Thanks again to our wonderful presenters. We appreciate all of you, and we look forward to a really happy and productive 2024. Thanks, everybody. Enjoy the rest of your Friday.